Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. The ramifications of the judges' scorecards in the Mayeli Flores versus Nazarena Romero fight and how Mayeli Flores is now this division's WBA champion. What does that mean moving forward? Well, I don't get the sense that there's going to be a rematch. I don't get the sense there's going to be a second fight between her and Nazarena, so at least momentarily, Nazarena is out of the picture, out in the cold.
Shit.
There are three champions in the super bantamweight division. Unified champion Ellie Scotney of the United Kingdom and Yemi Mercado of Mexico, the longest reigning champion at this weight, more experienced than Ellie and more experienced than Mayeli by a wide margin. She's reigned as WBC champion for at least 4 or 5 years now.
27 years old.
The same as Ellie Scotney, who only has 10 professional fights to Yemi's 27. So Yemi is more experienced, though I don't think she's as talented as Ellie. I expect Ellie to win the fight, and win the fight by way of a points decision.
Ellie is a talented fighter with many gifts, but power is not one among them. And Yemi Mercado, she's got a chin. She's been in there with some really heavy-handed punchers. She's been in there with Amanda Serrano. Went the distance with her at featherweight. So I don't expect Ellie to knock out Yemi where Amanda could not.
I expect Ellie to beat her on points, at which point the focus will then turn to Mayeli Flores and completing the set, becoming this division's inaugural undisputed champion, because there's never been one before.
Can Ellie do it?
I may not agree with the judge's decision in the Romero versus Flores fight, but that doesn't change how dangerous Mayeli Flores will be for Ellie Scotney. That Nazarena Romero is a more heavy-handed puncher than Ellie is. And if she couldn't get Mayeli to simmer down with all of those counter right hands that she landed,
how is Ellie gonna do it?
in the opening stanza of Romero versus Flores, you saw Nazarena moving and punching and setting up counters, landing them with some regularity, and she was having a lot of success doing that, to where the opening round was very one-sided. It's not until she starts trying to assert herself, getting into exchanges, and sitting on her punches, that things get difficult.
She kinda got away from her boxing in spots.
See, you could see that she was expecting a lot more respect from Mayeli than what she was getting, and that sort of flustered her, simultaneously tiring her out, because she's putting so much on those right hands that it's wearing on her energy reserves.
Nazarena is a good fighter in her own way, but she doesn't have the best engine. We saw that in the Erica Cruz fight, and we did see it again yesterday in the Flores fight. I think she deserved to win the fight, but that doesn't change that she was noticeably gassed after a while, looking tired. I think that's one area where Ellie is better than Nazarena. I think Ellie has better conditioning, a better engine. She can keep her shape better as the fight progresses and stick to her boxing.
Mayeli Flores may have looked like a tank yesterday, but don't forget that she's been beat before. Yuli Hangluna beat her, and it wasn't by engaging, it wasn't by trading, it was by moving and punching and boxing.
Ellie can do that.
And sticking to it. Not selling out when the pressure is on, but sticking to the game plan. Because like I said, there were moments where Nazarena made her own job harder by trading 180.
She was expecting those punches to do more damage because they normally do a lot of damage, whereas with Miele,
she's one of the more dangerous and durable fighters anywhere at or around these weights. You're not going to land with the same authority on her that you do with other girls. So Ellie Scotney would be wise to just stay on your toes.
Easier said than done, but keep your shape as the fight progresses. Keep your head on a swivel.
Mind the looping shots, as that is Miele Flores' weapon of choice, and work off the counter, as there will be plenty of countering opportunities due to her forward momentum. But you have to keep distance.
Mind your surroundings and keep a bit of space between you and her, because she's going to try to crash the pocket.
You have to make sure that she doesn't pin you down. Understanding Miele Flores as a fighter is easy, but being in the ring with her, that's something else.
It's the running theme with pressure fighters. They're easy to understand, but not easy to deal with.
Now first, Ellie has to deal with Yemi Mercado in July on the undercard of Taylor vs. Serrano 3, and I expect that she will win that fight, but this one, I honestly think this fight with Miele will be a lot more difficult than that one. Attention now turns to Raymond Murataya as he awaits Vasyl Lomachenko after claiming the interim title via the IBF against Zaur Abdullaev. San Diego. Raymond Murataya's pursuit of a world title may be days away if three-division champion Vasyl Lomachenko opts to retire and surrender the red belt. Until then, Murataya did all he wanted to accomplish Saturday night at Pechanga Arena, dismissing Russia's Zaur Abdullaev to claim the IBF interim lightweight title by unanimous decision scores of 119-109 twice and 118-110. It feels great to put this around my waist. It was a long journey. We got it now, said Murataya, now 23-0 with 17 KOs. Abdullaev's a tough fighter. He came to fight. I was using my skills.
Now, the judges' scorecards tell the story of a fight that Raymond Murataya clearly won, but having watched it myself, I wasn't particularly blown away with Raymond. I wasn't.
Lomachenko, 37, has up until October 8th to fight Murataya, and his decision is expected imminently. I'm now the mandatory to fight him. It'd be an honor to fight him, Murataya said of Lomachenko. Murataya spent a wealth of time sparring for the Abdullaev bout, mastering his movement and ability to shift into position to land scoring blows. He started the night with jabs, then shuffled to deliver a left hand to the body and a right to the face. The intensity of the punches increased in the second round when Murataya belted Abdullaev with a hard, sudden right hand to the head, followed by a rapid right-left combination.
Murataya dabbled in a southpaw stance in the third, reverted back to orthodox to land jabs and landed a quick right before the pair exchanged blows, indicating Abdullaev recognized his early deficit.
Murataya's attention to defense and his sharp head movement makes him an elusive target, and it turned the bout more deliberate in the fourth. There's risk and caution because Abdullaev unloaded two big right hands in the fifth, and catching up to win the round becomes a more ominous challenge. Murataya opted to let his hands go more freely in the sixth, leaning on his skilled footwork to find Abdullaev with the greater abundance of scoring blows. He leaned into the benefit of activity again in the seventh. Murataya extended his lead by jabbing crisply and maneuvering to land effective rights. But as the eighth round moved along, some groans from the crowd arose.
If the Times Square show and the Saudi show were proof of anything, is that you could be winning a fight and still not entertain a crowd. And that's how it felt yesterday. It felt very flat from Raymond.
Nothing really stood out, fair or not. The showing was ripe to be compared with the February 14th WBO lightweight title victory by 2021 U.S. Olympic silver medalist Keyshawn Davis, who produced a masterful and destructive stoppage of Ukraine's Denis Berenchik. The masses don't pay for head movement. They want knockouts, not precaution. Murataya initially balked at expressing interest in meeting Keyshawn Davis, saying, "I've got a mandatory. I'm not focused on that right now."
It's fair to make the comparison between how Keyshawn Davis has been looking in his fights and Raymond has been looking in his, since they're both under the top rank banner. They both fight in the same weight class, but Keyshawn's fights are more engaging, more exciting, whereas Raymond,
I used to think of him as an artillery fighter, but he's becoming more and more of a boxer. I'm coming to win, and I want all the belts. Before the 10th round, Murataya's 2024 Trainer of the Year, Robert Garcia, was seen urging his fighter to unleash flurries, or at least to follow a scoring blow with more than just a withdrawal. Murataya absorbed some shots in the 11th and opened with effective uppercuts and jabs that added to the bruised face of Abdullaev, getting the better of their increased action in the 12th.
Saturday night, it was enough to win and move on, but with the likes of Keyshawn Davis and Gervonta Davis, Shakur Stevenson, and even unbeaten contender Andy Cruz looming in the division, Muratalla will soon learn all about the responsibilities that accompany that new strap around his waist.
Different styles will bring the best out of me, he said. I will continue to work on my craft, and you'll see a better version of Raymond every time out. This time what we saw was a boxer, a very cautious one. The fight didn't have any flair,
Even though he won it clear.
didn't have any sizzle. And of all the unbeaten up-and-comers coming through in the lightweight division today, Raymond is arguably the most forgettable. It's not a knock on him, but you've got Gervonta Davis there, Keyshawn Davis, Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, Floyd Schofield,
Abdullah Mason.
Lomachenko, who Raymond is now waiting on. It's hard to imagine that Lomachenko will keep fighting at 37 years old and having been out of the ring for over a year. I expect him to retire.
At which point, Raymond will be elevated to full IBF champion, if that's how it happens. But that does little for his profile, being elevated to champion as opposed to winning the title from the champion.
It's easy to get forgotten when there are all these other major players in the mix, and they're putting on more memorable performances than Raymond is. That doesn't make Raymond a bad fighter. That just makes this a deep division.
I would not call the performance lackluster, so much as forgettable, ho-hum, mundane.
Just seems like a blur in hindsight. He won the fight and won it clear, but not in a memorable way.
And you can make of that what you will.
Things will liven up if and when he is elevated to full IBF champion. I expect him to become a target for Keyshawn Davis and Shakur Stevenson, the other champions at this weight. And maybe Raymond will give us something to remember, something to think about. But yesterday...
It sure looks like Brian Norman is going to go over to Japan to fight Jin Sasaki. I don't know if that's official yet, but it's obviously trending in that direction. Some of the talk I've heard out of Norman's camp is, well, Boots isn't available this summer. He's got mandatories. A unification fight wouldn't be on the table right away. We're going to go to Japan, make some money, fight Jin Sasaki. You're smiling. Like what is real with all this?
It's absolutely available now. I mean, we've made them an offer last week. And we've even said to them, if you are taking that fight in Japan, let's lock the fight in for after that. October, November, December, whenever. And they come back and say, we don't want to talk about any other fights until we have this fight. I'm just like, fuck. So, I don't know. I mean, we can't rely on Brian Norman to chase any kind of greatness because the purse is outrageous in terms of what he's made. And, it's a massive purse that we've offered him. So, I don't know is the answer. I mean...
The situation hasn't gotten any better between Boots and Brian Norman. I didn't expect it to, because underneath it all, I don't think the Normans want to unify. I don't think they want to be undisputed champions as bad as Boots does. And that's the bottom line. This says it all.
You weren't willing to go to Philly for Boots last year, but you're willing to go halfway around the world for Jin Sasaki, who is not a champion, and even worse, that you couldn't bring him to you.
But you're the same guys demanding the moon and the stars from Matchroom, from Eddie Hearn, from Boots. The same guys that can't afford to bring Jin Sasaki to you. You're going to him. What that says is there's more money and more muscle behind him than there is behind you. Otherwise, you'd be fighting here.
It's not a bad fight.
Brian Norman versus Jin Sasaki? That promises to be fireworks, but it's not about poo-pooing on the fight so much as poo-pooing on the Norman's decision-making. I mean, what if you lose out there to Jin Sasaki? You miss out on the payday you could have got losing to Boots, contributing to the decline of the American boxing scene and how the American boxer is so risk-averse and so business-minded. You could lose the gin just as easily as you could lose the boots. But losing the boots, you do it here, in front of Americans, in front of the audience you're supposed to be catering to. There's no excitement.
There's not that much to look forward to in terms of boxing here in the United States. The fight on the calendar I'm looking most forward to is Bam Rodriguez versus Fumalele Kafu.
But of course, Americans don't traditionally watch the lower weights, the light flyweights, the flyweights, and the super flyweights. I feel like the best fight to make in the welterweight division is Boots versus Brian Norman. I think most people would forgive Boots if he can't get Mario Barrios in the ring because he's already assigned to fight Manny Pacquiao.
And in a very general sense, I think most people would pick both Jaron Ennis and Brian Norman to beat Mario Barrios.
It's the fight between them that I think most people want to see in today's welterweight division. And it's not the biggest of the big fights, but it is one of the fights that needs to happen that likely won't.
Welcome to America.
And now there is all this talk from Teofimo Lopez about moving up to 147 to take on Boots at a time where Boots does have a mandatory challenger in the queue. At first, I figured that he should just drop the WBA title, surrender it to Shakram Gayasov as mandatory, and go fight Teo.
But then it was brought to my attention that if he does it that way, he will then be subject to the IBF's 10-pound rehydration clause. As a unified champion with 2 alphabet titles, he's not subject to it. But if he gives up the BA, he's back in the shit.
Details, details, details. As American boxing fans, we are all bogged down by the details, where the devil is.
The devil's in the details.
The welterweight division is so greatly lacking excitement right now. The most news coming out of 147 is Manny Pacquiao's ring return that I don't want to see.
He's 46.
But the younger guys, the ones that are supposed to be in their prime, per usual, are not fighting. It's too risky. I blame the Normans.
They've been sandbagging it since last year, and they're still sandbagging it now.
You do the rounds on all these podcasts. You bring this guy up whenever you get the chance so that you can go to Japan and fight Jin Sasaki, because that's more important.
Like I said, I don't think the Normans want a fight so much as the clout that comes from it. By themselves, they don't give you much to talk about, but so long as their name is attached to Boots, they get that extra profile boost. Even if the fight doesn't happen, so long as the fight stays a conversation, they get free press.
They're gonna be up shit's creek without a paddle if Boots makes a power move and decides to move up the junior middle sooner than later.
The other kids like Ryan and Devin and Teofimo, they're not going to give Brian Norman the time of day. The only guy who's really interested in him, that's worth anything, is Boots. He moves up.
Mario Barrios is fighting Manny Pacquiao, and Rolly Romero wants next in line. None of them are worried about Brian Norman, and none of them are going to offer him anything.
I just don't know what Team Norman's strategy is, aside from avoiding Boots. But avoiding him to do what? To go to Japan?
The inconvenient truth? Boots and Brian Norman may never fight. And maybe that's what the Normans want.
Maybe that's the end game.
Anybody but Boots will fight anybody but him.